People often ask me what I do for a living, and when I say martial arts instructor, they don't really ask any other questions because they probably think that I'm chopping deaths and occasionally kids' legs or something, but that's the furthest truth from what I do. So I'm very excited to share what I get to do every day and what I love to do every day. So I've had some slides prepared for you guys, but unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, we won't have any slides. But as what Mr. Jim introduced me, as I started back in 1984, I've started because my best friend would beat up on me every day. So my father would take me aside and teach me how to high block and hit him back, and after about an hour of lesson, I would tell my father, said, well, how could I hit him? He's my friend. And he would say, well, why is he hitting you? So I just saw a good point there. So he took me to a local Taekwondo school. And the problem was a week later, my friend joined as well, so I never got to beat him up. But I think I could take him now. So I also thought that when I joined martial arts school that I'll be learning just the kicks and the punches and how to do flying side kicks and so on. But what I've learned through martial art is I would like to share some of the ideas with you today. Number one thing that both my grandmaster and my father insisted me on for all my life is that number one, you have to be honest. Honesty, all relationship is based on trust and faith. And my father told me that it takes a long time to build trust, and just one tiny mistake, you can compromise it all. So I always try to insist my students to become honest and be truthful to yourself, because when you lie to someone, you're lying to yourself, not to someone else. So even my father said that even if I kill someone, if I tell him the truth, he will forgive me. That's how he valued the honesty within myself. Second is never settle for less. How many of you have dogs here? Anybody? Okay. How many of you think that dogs like bones? Okay. Well, my dogs don't like bones. What they like is meat. Right? So if you hold the meat and the bone, which one do you think they will run after? They will go after the meat, not for the bones. Because they can't have bones, they can't have meat, they settle for bones. So I always tell my students that if you ever see your dog playing with the bones, tell yourself never settle for less. Always go after what you want in life. Number three, never say what you don't mean. Back in 2006, my mother came to visit me, and my father and my mother and I had to, unfortunately, live away because my father is a professor in Korea, and he loved the American education system so much that he kind of left us here, and he's gone back, and we've been visiting about 3-4 months out of the year. So I was forced to kind of grow up a little faster along with my sister. But anyway, in 2006, my mother came to visit me, and my mother and I had an argument over my sister. My sister, who can't drive, there's a reason why billions of Asians ride bicycles. And she had totaled many vehicles, and for that particular time, she had totaled about 7th vehicle at that time. So my mother told me to go pick up the car, and I tried to explain to her that it's totaled, it's non-drivable, non-fixable, but she didn't understand. So we had a little bit of an argument, and that next morning she was going to help a lady at a business. She came to my room and brought me a breakfast, and I knew she was there, but I just kind of closed my eyes and I just pretend like I didn't see her. And then she went to work, and that afternoon she called me again, and she started talking about the car again. So I hung up on her, and that night I got another call saying that your mother had been in a car accident and I should come to the hospital. And when I got there, she was passed away. So that's the last thing I said to my mother was to hang up on her. So I always tell kids that never ever say what you don't mean, and we sometimes say things to hurt them back. But I've learned from that day on to never say anything to anybody that I don't mean. So. Next thing is self-discipline. Of course, there's no explanation to self-discipline, but I think it's very important that everything we do in our lives is through habit, and we pick up our habits as we grow up. So I would really try to insist on our children to have positive habits rather than the negative habits. I believe laziness is a habit, lying is a habit. At the same time, we have great habits. I can't remember who said this, but I really love this quote. It said, "Don't wish for less problems, wish for more skills. Don't wish things were easier, wish you were better." So they always say if you work for somebody, you make a living, but if you work on yourself, you can make a fortune. So I think it's really important that we teach our children how to work on ourselves and always reflect on themselves. Another quote that I love is that when a hungry child asks for food, don't give him a fish, teach him how to fish, and then you'll feed him for the rest of his life. So I really live by that, and we try to help our children how to do that. Next thing is believe and never give up. So up until 1954, there was no one who could run a mile in under 4 minutes. And up until that year, this gentleman named Roger Bannister broke that record for the very first time. And since then, till today, we have 25,000 people, including the high school students, broke that record. And only thing that's changed that there was new belief. And when people found out it was possible, they did everything and anything to break them. So we kind of live in this closed shell, and we always never even try things and just simply give up. And I always try to tell our children that success is not about failing. It's not about succeeding. It's about how much you can fail and then take that as an experience and learning experience, and so you can become more successful. I firmly believe that if you want to be successful, you have to fail more than everybody else. So if you sleep much as everybody else, if you play much as everybody else, and if you study much as everybody else, you're going to be just like everybody else. So I think we need to always work hard and go after our goals. I have a picture here. I don't know if we can see. My friend was building a house, and he invited me over to his house, and it looked like just a slab. And I was walking through the mud, and I was going from one direction where there's a little less muddy, and he goes, no, that's not where the front door is. I'm like, front door? So I had to go in a certain way, and as we walk, and here's going to be a master bedroom, here's going to be a living room, and blah, blah, blah. And then he explained the fireplace so well that I almost bumped my elbow to him. So, and before he got there, I couldn't see. But after he got there, I was able to see the house. And I think that's what we're trying to do for our children, is to help them see and direct them in a positive way. So I think it's very important that we always have clear vision with our lives. Next thing, I would like to ask you a question. Let's see. Man. Let's talk about this cup. Is this a big cup or a small cup?
Medium.
Big cup. Now, is this a big cup or a small cup?
Bigger.
Small cup. Now, is this a big cup or a small cup? This is not a big cup or a small cup. So whether this cup is a big cup or a small cup is in where? In the cup or in yourself? Within yourself. So the way we see in our lives is through our own eyes. Is we see it the way we want to see it. So many times we often complain, and just like when I started my own school, I blamed on everything. I blamed on the economy. I blamed on other people that doesn't believe in what I do. But I soon realized that only person I should blame on is myself. And I need to do something about the situation, not blaming on everybody else. So we always, martial art is a mirror. So when you stand in front of the mirror, who do you see? Yourself. So we can't change the weather, we can't change other people, but we can do something about yourself. And my grandmaster used to say that when you point a finger at somebody, the rest of the fingers point back at you. So never judge anybody, never put down anybody, always treat them with respect. Last thing, I just came back from South Korea. My plan was to go visit my relatives, many of them relatives throughout the Korea, but that kind of failed because I had to get a treatment on my tooth, and it's so much cheaper there that I ended up staying at my dad's house for the most part. And I'm glad that I did, because I never really had an opportunity to really sit down and talk with him. And for the first time ever, it was almost as if I was a grown up. I wasn't not a immature son anymore. So I had a long talk with him, and we talked about what life is all about, and what happiness is about. So I'd like to ask you what your means for happiness, and if your happiness is something that your means for happiness is something you can't have or you can't achieve, I believe that you're going to be always feel poor and absent. So my means for happiness, I have a 2-year-old daughter. She'll be 2 this Friday, and everything I can to get a smile out of her, that's my means for happiness. And this is her. I told her that this morning I was playing with her for about 2 hours, and I was trying to prepare for this presentation at the same time. And she wanted a kiss, and I said, this is the only man you're going to kiss until you're 39 and a half. So hopefully she understood. Well, thank you so much. And if you have any other questions, I would love to receive any questions.